Cross-border data transfer is a hot topic around the world. With so many companies operating globally, it's essential to be able to move data back and forth between different countries. But with China's strict data security laws, it's important to know the rules before you make a transfer. What is cross-border data transfer? Cross-border data transfer is the transfer of data from one country to another. This can be done in a number of ways, such as through email, cloud storage, or even physical storage devices. To be specific, there are 3 key scenarios for cross-border data transfer. 1. Transferring data onshore to recipients overseas. 2. Storing data from China in a global database overseas. 3. Allowing foreign visitors or global staffs to access data that is collected and stored in China. All of these scenarios are considered cross-border data transfer under China law. When and how does data transfer in the operation and transaction? Cross-border data transfer can happen in a variety of situations. For example, a company may need to transfer data to its overseas headquarters or to a supplier in another country. Data transfer can also happen during cross-border transactions, such as when a customer makes a purchase from a foreign website. The Personal Information Protection Law, PIPL, is China's new data privacy law, which came into effect in November 2021. The PIPL imposes a number of restrictions on the transfer of personal data outside of China. What kind of data can't I transfer outside of China? Some types of data are considered to be important data or collected by CAIOs, critical information infrastructure operators. These types of data are not allowed to be transferred outside of China. Generally, this type of data is collected in important industries and areas such as public telecommunications and information services, energy, transportation, finance, public service, and e-government. Tesla, for example, has announced that it will set up a data center in China to store and process all data collected in China, and will not transfer this data overseas. In some cases, legal requirements may restrict the transfer of certain types of data outside of China, even if it is not important data or collected by a CIIO. In these cases, the data must go through a mandatory risk assessment or legal procedure before it can be transferred. Apart from these 2 scenarios, other types of data can be freely transferred outside of China. How should legal obligations be fulfilled for the cross-border transfer of restricted data? There are 3 main mechanisms for cross-border data transfer under PIPL. Firstly, the security assessment. The data handler must submit a security assessment to the National Data Authority, the CAC, and obtain approval before data transfer. Secondly, standard contract. The data handler can enter into a standard contract with the overseas recipient of the personal data. The standard contract is a template contract developed by the CAC that sets forth the requirements for the protection of personal data during cross-border transfer. Thirdly, the certification. The data handler can obtain certification from a professional institution showing that the overseas recipient of the personal data has adequate security measures in place. The choice of the cross-border data transfer mechanism depends on a case-by-case basis, primarily influenced by the data category and the expected annual data volume. I won't get surprised if you feel it is hard for the compliance in front of cross-border data transfer. But don't worry, here is the due process you can follow. Step 1. Identify the type of data being transferred. Whether the data is personal information, important data, or non-personal and non-important data. Step 2. Assess the risks associated with the transfer. You should conduct a DPIA, the Data Protection Impact Assessment, to assess the legal and security risks and mitigation methods in advance. Step 3. Select a compliant transfer mechanism. There are 3 main transfer mechanisms available. Step 4. Implement appropriate safeguards. Once a transfer mechanism has been selected, companies must implement appropriate safeguards to protect the data during transfer and storage. This may include using encryption, anonymization, and other security measures. Step 5. Monitor the transfer and storage of the data. While the Chinese government has been increasingly regulating cross-border data transfers in recent years, it has become more difficult for companies to transfer personal data out of China. However, there are still a number of ways to do so, and the rules are continually evolving to strike a balance between security and economic promotion. If you're unsure about any of the requirements, it's always best to consult with a lawyer or your DPO.